Imagine if Saw 2 and Repo the Genetic Opera had a baby, but that baby was born on a shoestring budget and immediately dumped onto Tubi at 3 a.m. That is the internal struggle of Twisted, the latest offering from Darren Lynn Bousman. It's a film that desperately wants to recapture the industrial, grime-slicked glory of the mid-2000s torture porn era. But it ultimately feels like a cover band playing the hits on instruments they found in a dumpster. The aesthetic here is green-tinted cynicism. If you've seen the later Saw sequels, you know the look. Sickly fluorescent lights, flat digital textures, and police precincts that look less like actual municipal buildings, more like a spirit Halloween setup in an abandoned office space. It's a film that tries to substitute visual grit for actual atmosphere, resulting in a presentation that feels surprisingly cheap for a director of Bousman's pedigree. I'm going to break down why this stylish on paper thriller collapses under the weight of its own tropes, and whether the heavy hitters in the cast can save you the price of a rental. We are in the high-stakes, low-morality world of New York City real estate, but not the kind you find on Zillow. Our protagonist, Paloma, played by the consistently impressive LaVera, is a con artist who has turned the housing crisis into a weapon. Alongside her partner, Smith, she runs an audacious scam, reducing the city's wealthiest marks and tricking them into signing over life-changing sums of money for luxury penthouses they don't even own. It's a slick, cynical Act 1 that promises a cat-and-mouse erotic thriller. The stakes shift when they set their sights on Dr. Robert Kezian. Djimon Hounsou steps into the role of Kezian, a world-class neurosurgeon paralyzed by the grief of his late wife's passing and obsessed with scientific legacy that the medical establishment, read ethics committees, don't let him pursue. The conflict ignites when the scam goes sideways. Paloma doesn't just lose the money, she nearly loses her life. She wakes up not in a hospital, but in Kezian's sprawling, claustrophobic apartment. He's saved her, sure, but in the world of Darren Lynn Bousman, saving someone usually involves a scalpel, a lack of anesthesia, and a very dark, ulterior motive. Paloma finds herself trapped in a living nightmare where her body is no longer her own, and the doctor is looking for a breakthrough that laws and common decency simply won't allow. It's a classic trapped in a house with a madman setup, pitting the professional liar against a professional god complex. On paper, it's a powerhouse confrontation. In execution, well, that's where the wheels start to come off. When you have LaVera and Djimon Hounsou sharing a frame, you expect a certain level of gravitational pull. And to be fair, LaVera is doing some heavy lifting here. After her run in the Terrifier franchise, we know she can handle horror to some degree, but she does a pretty good job selling a script that feels like it was written on a cocktail napkin. She brings a grounded, desperate humanity to Paloma that the movie doesn't quite deserve. Watching her trade barbs with Hounsou is the only thing keeping the ship from sinking immediately. Hounsou, for his part, is doing the sophisticated menace in his sleep. He's got that booming Shakespearean authority, but you could almost see him looking for the exit sign in some of these scenes. The supporting cast is where things get questionable. Look, I love Alicia Witt. I will watch her in anything, from urban legend to the weirdest Hallmark movie ever made. She's a pro, but she and Neal McDonough, who plays a character named Bradshaw, feel like they're in a completely different movie. Then we have these detectives that are another part of the plot, where most of their scenes are in a police precinct that are draped in that aforementioned sickly green filter. It looks like the cinematographer found a leftover crate of filters from Saw 3 and decided to use them all at once. The acting in these secondary scenes is shoddy, feeling less like a 2026 release and more like a table read where everyone is just trying to remember their lines. Then we have to talk about the aesthetics and the sound design. And if you followed the channel for a while, you know I'm a sucker for a good vibe. The vibe here is stock library. The music is some of the most generic, uninspired stings I've heard in years. It's bonkers how bad the score is in this. It's loud, it's flat, it lacks any of the industrial operatic soul that Bousman usually brings to the table. Visually, it's a disaster as well. It's cheap and flat looking. There's a scene early on in the apartment, a supposed luxury space, where the lighting is so blown out and digital that it loses all the texture. Even the gore effects, which should be Bousman's bread and butter, feel kind of uninspired. There's a particular medical sequence involving a neural interface that should have been body horror gold. But the practical effects look like they were sourced from Spirit Halloween clearance aisle. It lacks the wetness, the crunch, the visceral impact that makes cult horror work. As we move on into the second act, the film tries to ramp up the tension by introducing Kezian's scientific legacy. He's not just a mad doctor, he's a man trying to play God with Paloma's nervous system. The movie attempts to pivot into a psychological deep dive about grief and the links we go to for the ones we love. But here's the problem. The writing is just not there. The dialogue is clunky and the pacing is more of a stumble. We spend far too much time watching Paloma scream and Kezian monologuing to a photo of his dead wife and videos of her. It feels like the movie is stalling for time, waiting to get to its big reveal. And speaking of that reveal, I have to stay spoiler free, but I'll say this. If you've seen more than 3 thrillers in your life, you will smell this twist coming from a mile away. The movie treats its final act like it's some M. Night Shyamalan level revelation, but it's a trope we've seen done better in basic cable procedurals. They act like it's this shocking, earth-shattering moment, but by the time it lands, I was already checking my watch. So what did I think of Twisted 2026? When you see names like Hounsou and LaVera on a marquee, you expect a certain level of maybe prestige, or at least high-octane genre exercise. Instead, Twisted feels like it was produced by an AI that was fed nothing but the direct-to-video bin from 2006 Blockbuster. There is a fundamental lack of craft in the transition from Act 2 to Act 3 that makes the experience feel less like a movie and more like a chore. The biggest sin here isn't even the low budget, it's the arrogance of the script. The film treats its audience like they've never seen a thriller before. It spends 90 minutes building towards a conclusion that is telegraphed. You'll have it figured out before the second bucket of popcorn is empty. It's the cinematic equivalent of someone telling you a joke you've heard 1,000 times, then waiting wide-eyed for you to laugh at the punchline. I'm giving Twisted a 1.5 out of 5 stars. Unless you have a morbid curiosity for how a director like Bousman can lose his visual identity so completely, this is a hard pass. But did you see Twisted? Am I being too hard on it? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and consider subscribing. If you want to support the channel a little further, hit that join button and join our 99-cent YouTube membership. And I'll see you in the next one.